Hey, everyone. Welcome to our Inner Edge Live weekly. Bear with me 1 second. I am just checking to make sure that I am streaming on my platforms because sometimes I don't see the recording. So I'm just trying to make sure. Let me see. And if you're here live, say hey. I am really like getting into the groove of things of going live again. And I'm just like so excited. Okay, cool. All right. So I see here we are live. I just want to see what I look like. Okay, cool. All right. So um let's go ahead and get started because I am excited about today's discussion. Okay. So first things first is you are tuning in with Nikki, and I want to welcome you back to the Inner Edge Live. And this is basically where we help leaders influence smarter, connect deeper, and lead stronger through emotional intelligence. And again, I'm Nikki, and tonight's session is going to be one that every leader who needs buy-in, right, should have in their toolkit, and it is so important. And so today we're going to be talking about today's topic. It's called the psychology of workplace influence. Why people really say yes. A lot of times we think that they're saying yes because they're here for a paycheck. And let's keep it real. There's a lot of people who aren't doing the work, right? And so I want to start with a statistic to see if you know this, okay? So, did you know that teams with emotionally intelligent leaders outperform their peers by up to 20%, right? So, those who are led by emotionally intelligent leaders usually outperform their peers within the organization by 20%. And it's not because they're working harder, right? It's because they feel safer. They feel safer. And so I want that to land with you. You can get your team to increase their performance just by simply helping them feel safer. And again, if you are joining live, go ahead and drop live in the comments, and I could go ahead and see your discussions. And then if you are catching the replay, go ahead and hashtag replay. I am just triple checking that I can see all the comments. Um, okay, cool. All right, yeah. So if you drop a comment, I can't see where you are tuning in from, but I can see that you're saying hey. And if you have questions, chime in and share, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and dive into it. So let me ask you, how often do you present a solid idea with great data, right, to your team, but they still seem hesitant or they still seem resistant? Like to you in your mind, it's a no-brainer, but you're trying to figure out like how can I get them to take action? How can I get them to take advantage of this opportunity? Right? It's usually not your logic that gets them to move. It is the emotional component. And so tonight we're going to explore how emotionally intelligent leaders can bridge that gap so you can stop presenting and start truly connecting. Right. And so one of the things when I very first started in the sales space was we used to say always be ABC, right? And ABC stood for always be closing. But very soon after, I've closed over 100 million in sales today. As a matter of fact, we are in July, and I am almost to 120 million of deals that I have closed personally, professionally for clients and my own organization myself. That's not including my team and what other organizations that I've helped inspired. But one of the things that I really noticed was very soon into me closing these deals was I realized that it wasn't about closing, right? I realized that closing was great, right? It was cool for the pockets, but it meant nothing if we didn't retain the client, right? It meant nothing if the client never got a result or the team didn't get a transformation from it. They have that saying of, you teach someone to fish, for when you give someone fish, you teach them for a day, right? You teach them how to eat for a day, but when you teach them how to fish, right, you actually embed in them and teach them for a lifetime, right? Not, I know I kind of messed that up, but overall, you get it. When you teach someone, they actually end up understanding. When they connect, they understand the emotional or the logistics behind fishing, right? Versus it just being handed to them. They're not fearful for going out and getting the fish on the hook themselves and then reeling it back in, right? And so they understand how to do that. And so with ABC, what it stands for me now today is always be connecting, right? Always be connecting. And so you need to think about that, right? Write that in your notebook. So today, when you're going through your organization and you're thinking of, oh my gosh, like how can I get individuals to do and implement the things that we're trying to work in our organization, ask yourself, did I take time to connect? Did I take time to connect? So ABC, always be connecting, right? And let's go ahead and get to the juicy. So I want to talk about why emotional intelligence is essential. So, workplace decisions are emotional choices, right? And it's wrapped in logical justifications. However, with us getting about, was it, I can't remember the number, but hundreds of thousands of baby boomers leaving the workplace today, and they're now being replaced by Gen Z, Gen Y, and so forth, right? The biggest thing that you need to understand is with this newer generation, they actually prioritize their self care over anything. They prioritize their self care over any paycheck. It's not like back in the day with baby boomers, you could throw it their way and then they swallow their pride, don't say anything, don't stick up and speak their mind, right? With our new millennials and our new um, generation, right? Our Gen Zs, especially, that is mostly what my calls are about when I am working with companies. Is we're talking about the Gen Z and how there's a gap between it and how their Gen Z is like one thing, right? And they're already thinking about like what their next opportunity is. And so we need to create a space where they feel safe. It's not about the paycheck for a lot of them. A lot of them is they want to enjoy being working, right? It's not that they're lazy. It's not that they are not wanting to do the work, but they want to enjoy the work. And so this is a completely different demographic. And so emotional intelligence is very essential when you are considering this new generation. And so most people aren't evaluating your idea. So your team is usually not evaluating the idea of the problem, right? Oops, excuse me. They are evaluating how it makes them feel about their security, their autonomy, and their value. Okay, especially with this new generation. I cannot share that enough, right? It was so funny because the other day I was talking to my husband and I was telling him about this organization that I'm working with. And they're starting to put like really strict guidelines that is like interfering with why I took this opportunity. And the reason why I took the opportunity was to be able to be flexible so that I could be a mom, show up first and foremost, right? And I have a business, I have a company, which is the case for most Gen Z people these days, right? A lot of companies have had to suck it up and not turn their face the other way because they see somebody that runs a company or that runs a business and had to accept that the things that they've learned in their business is actually the thing that drives them every single day in their role. And so and my husband's response when I was telling him like, hey, they're doing this, it's making it hard for me to be here for my son. And I said, when it comes down to, are you going to make this event for your kid or are you going to work? I am going to choose going to be there for my kid. Right. And it's really just at the end of the day, is because I want to be here. It's not because I have to be here. I have an organization, I have a team, I have a company. Right. And so that is what you kind of have to really consider these days when you're working with, especially the newer generation. And so when you learn to recognize the emotions underneath their questions, their concerns, their excitement, the things that make them fearful, right? You can respond more empathetic and you could guide the conversation with confidence. And that's what emotional intelligence influence or emotional intelligent influence is all about, right? So we're talking about how you can influence your team through emotional intelligence. And so I have a 4-part framework that is EI based for workplace influence. So I'm going to go ahead and go through those. These are a little snippet of what we do when we come into your organization to do a workshop. And just sidebar, we have info sessions right after these live Inner Edge Live weeklies where we invite executives to actually enroll. So if you are actually on our website, eiready.com, you should be able to, once you register or once you do the quiz, there should be an area where you're able to actually join the info sessions. You can also do eiready.com/info. Again, /info, and it will direct you to the register for the meeting with us. And we would have one-on-one time where we can ask direct questions. But for now, I'm going to give you some tips. But in the info sessions, we actually go into how we can help your organization with your conflict resolution. Okay. So step one is you want to understand concerns and motivations, right? Your colleagues make decisions to either avoid potential problems or move towards something they want. Your job as the manager, right? As you're managing your organization and you're managing your team, is to get clarity on what they feel, not just what they say. Okay. So you want to ask them these questions, and you should have a notebook at this time already in your hands because you should have already wrote down ABC, which is always be connecting. Okay. And this is how you're going to connect. What concerns you most about this change? Right. So we've all been at work before where we've been working in an organization and they decide, hey, we're going to go from paying you monthly to or weekly to bi-weekly or weekly to monthly. And no one was ever asked any questions. No one was ever engaged or encountered. And they lost people simply because they made a decision without connecting with their staff. Had they had a communication or had they communicated that with the team, their loss of their staff would have been substantially less. And essentially, a lot of times when companies make payroll changes, when they go from weekly to biweekly, or they go from biweekly and they go to monthly, it's really because of cost, right? They want to be more cost effective. And so they're thinking about a company, like they're thinking about the company, right? So when you're making decisions, most of the times we're thinking, okay, this is logical for the company. But what is logical for the people that are serving the company? I just did an audit with a company and I was just sharing with them, they went from they went from paying their staff weekly to bi-weekly. And in the transition, they never, prepared their team. They didn't give their team 30 days. They didn't give them 2 months. It was just like, hey, your check that you're expecting for Friday, oh, it will be here next Friday. And they had a lot of turnover. And so when I actually went down and I examined how they made that decision, we found out that they actually ended up paying more replacing the staff that they lost due to that decision than they actually saved, right? Because the goal of it was, they were paying X amount of dollars and so forth. And they were wanting to save, to be able on payroll, which makes total sense. And your staff will get that, but you have to communicate it. So you want to ask some things like, what concerns you most about this change? Right. And you could just do a simply surveymonkey.com. Surveymonkey.com would have saved them tens of thousands of dollars of asking questions like this. Hey, we are wanting to change this, and this is why. Do you have any concerns as to why this does this? And then you have a meeting addressing their concerns and say, hey, this is what we can do. Hey, I understand that you have XYZ going on. Maybe we can do it like this, or maybe we can lean into it over the next 30 to 90 days, right? Another question you can ask is, what would it feel like if this challenge was completely resolved, right? So, for instance, I'm working with someone right now. I'm working at a company right now where um, they require you um, to work longer hours on certain days, right? Like a couple days off the month, they want you to work till like 11 o'clock at night, or yeah, like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Well, here's the thing. I'm a ministry leader. I created my life, right, in the evenings to be able to serve. And so, what concerns me about the change is I am already committed. I have other things outside of my life that is very important to me, that makes me who I am, that helps me add value when I'm at work. Okay. It's not just about me just showing up every single day and doing the job. Who I am outside of work really plays into this strong, emotional, intelligent leader that I am in the job. Okay. In the role. So it's not just, oh, okay, well, you have to work until 10 o'clock at night. Well, what if they're confiscating that, and you feel like you're stripping that, they feel like you're stripping that from them. That's a piece of their identity. And now they're stumbling through those tasks, or they're stumbling through whatever it is, and they feel like it's gone, right? How important is it for you to take that away from them, right? And then this really reveals their real motivation. So you're asking them, what concerns you about this change? What would it feel like if this challenge was completely resolved? So let's say we were able to figure out a way for you to still be able to do your ministry at work, right, in the evening, and it not interfere with work. Like, what would it feel like? Would it feel relief for you? Like, how would it feel? And have those conversations. And then it really gives you like the real motivators for your team, and it gives you the language to address their actual needs in a public meeting and so forth. And you can go through it, right? But do not lose people just because you're missing step one of our framework. And that's understanding concerns and motivations. Step two, you want to recognize emotional decision drivers, right? So if you are looking to um, get them to move, what motivates them, right? We do this really cool thing in the workshop where we identify people's personality type, right? And you can't give a purple something that is meant for green, right? Like, you can't like mix their personalities and expect for them to understand each other. It is not going to work. And so people respond to stories and connection, not just data, right? They connect to why they're doing it sometimes, right? It just depends on the person and their personality. And so we do a really cool personality survey and persona. And so as a manager, you actually get to learn, like, when you're giving a purple someone instructions, there's a specific way that you deliver how you're talking to them, right? There's some colors that you can just throw everything at them and say, hey, this is what I need you to do. And then they go off and do it. They create their list. They come back and say, hey, here's my list. It's all done, right? That is me, right? I'm that girl. Like, you can throw everything at me and I can pull it together and I can get it done, right? I can pull the resources together and I can make it happen. That is just me. I may even outsource it, okay? And get assistance, but I will get it done. But not everyone is like that. Some people look at the list and they'll look at it for weeks, days at a time, and they're like, I don't know what step one is, because you did not equip them with that. So you need to recognize emotional decision drivers, like what is going to drive them. And so um, this also speaks to their safety. So we talked about at the very beginning how 20% of, emotional intelligent leaders outperform their peers' teams by up to 20%, right? And it's just because their team is feeling safer. And this step on step two is actually what does that. And I'm going to give you an example for step two. So most leaders who implemented this have told me their biggest concerns was team disruption, right? But once they saw how we could minimize that, they felt more confident in moving forward. So it's not just about pressure, it's about addressing real concerns with genuine solutions. And then step three, build psychological safety through empathy. Build psychological safety through empathy. So I'll share a story. My husband has actually been at his job for almost, it's going on 20 years since he's been at his job, right? And so he has learned over these 20 years that, like, when he first started, he was a manager right off the bat, and it was just like, you get it done, you don't, right? But he understood that there are some people that you just need to be a little bit more empathetic with. You need to be a little bit more connecting with, and understand how to communicate with them to get the job done, right? Instead of having a high turnover and saying, well, they're not doing it the way I want them to do it, so let's let them go, right? Or they start having a attendance problem because they feel like they can't address you. So, one of the most powerful influence tools is being a safe space for the people who express their concerns and think through implications, right? So, I'm going to give you something to try. So, you want to mirror their communication style. So, again, when we do your workshops, we come in, we help you examine who's who. I have a really cool way as to, once you're done with the workshop, on how to continue to implement it within the culture and be able to understand when you're talking to someone how they actually understand it a little bit better, right? And so, you want to acknowledge their concern, and you can say things like, I can hear how important team stability is to you. Let's talk through this. Let's talk through how this would actually support that, right? And so, if you know that their thing is team stability, right? That's all they care about, is that their team feels grounded, because there's always that one person on the team that everyone feels safe and comfortable to go talk to before they talk to the manager. And so, when you're talking to your team and you're talking to someone who is that person, and they're coming to you and addressing an concern, you can just say, hey, I know how important team stability is to you. Let's talk through and how we can actually support you through this, right? And they'll sometimes be the great messenger to be able to implement it back to the team if they're not there yet with you. But through emotional intelligence and through our training, you'll learn how to connect with your team much on a deeper level. And then that's really how you create an environment where people don't feel pushed. They feel supported in their decision making. And a lot of times, like, they come out feeling like, oh, this is something that I actually am empowered to make a decision on, right? And then step 4. All right, before we go into step 4, I'm going to recap step 1 through 3. So, step 1 is understand concerns and motivations, right? Step 2 is recognize emotional decision drivers. Step 3 is build your psychological safety through empathy. And I also want to share, if you are catching this live, say hey in the chats. If you are catching the replay, hashtag replay, and let me know that you watched it. Go ahead and share it with a manager who, or someone that you know that manages teams, that they can take this and implement this today, because we really want to start tackling workplace incivility, which are, cultural disconnects, right, within the organization. And so we want to help you with avoiding those. Okay. And so step 4 is reframe resistance as information. Reframe resistance as information. So resistance, really, like, when you feel like you're sharing your idea and you feel there's resistance, it's really just people saying, I need help understanding this from my perspective, right? And so I shared how in our workshops we help you with understanding how to understand. It's just like you're talking to someone in Chinese and they only understand Portuguese, right? And you're like, well, they should understand what I said, but in reality, like, to them it's a whole different language and they're stuck. And they don't feel, if they don't feel safe telling you that, then they're going to run around and ask a bunch of people to figure it out. And then those people who deliver it may not actually be delivering it the way that you want them to. And it may cause a lot of confusion within your organization. So you want to make sure you respond with emotional clarity and not be defensive, right? So when you feel that resistance, respond with emotional clarity and not get defensive. The moment you become defensive, you lose all respect, right? Emotional intelligence is important because you want to stay grounded in the conversation. And if they say, I'm not sure this is the right approach, then your response can be, that's valuable feedback. Thank you. Now, can you help me understand what approach would you feel more aligned with your goals? Right. So I always talk about how alignment with your assignment, right? That is our core value here at EI ready, right? So we want to make sure that even behind the scenes, that even the people that serve in our organization, who are on our marketing teams, who are running our systems, like, are they in alignment with their assignment? Do they fully understand? Like, are they able to fully own, right? And one of the things I do realize is that no one is sold to one position, right? They may need to pivot in this space, and I'm working with them in that, right? That's the beauty of working in a company where you have different roles. So actually figure out, are they aligned with the client, with your manager, or I'm sorry, with your teammates' goals, right? As you're managing them, and then you want to invite them to collaborate and not debate, because once you get their buy-in, once you get them to be included and feel valued, they will run through the wall for you, right? I'm one of those individuals that I used to say I am unemployable. And I'm being real. I used to say I am unemployable. And then it easily became I'm employable for the right person, right? I'm employable for someone that sees me, that values me, but then also has a mission behind whatever it is that we're doing. And I understand it and I trust you, right? I will run through a wall for you. And so that's how you build trust. Um, and you want to do this often. And you also want to make them feel supported. Now, I'm going to give you an example. So, I had worked with a leader who kept getting pushed back on important initiatives, right? And when we analyzed their approach, we realized that they were leading with solutions instead of understanding the concerns. Once they shifted to asking about the worries, the validating hesitations, and creating a space for honesty and safe dialogue, their success rate with their initiatives actually improved by 60% in just 2 months. Now, this was a leader who was literally like, I'm giving them the task. This is what I'm asking them to do. They couldn't get the task done. And so they went ahead and they kept doing it themselves to the point of burnout. And they found themselves on medical leave and so forth. And we ended up crossing paths and we just had a discussion. And it was just like, okay, well, did you try this with your team? Right. And so when they went back to work, they actually implemented the things that we discussed, and they saw that 60% in just 2 months' time were actually on board. They started feeling the relief. They no longer were afraid to step away to take a vacation. Before, they used to always say, "Oh, when I take a vacation, the work that I left is going to still be sitting there when I come back." But then they ended up realizing, okay, I'm able to employ my team to make the decisions and to take initiative. And they were very successful in that effort, right? It wasn't about a better presentation, it was about emotional connection. I'm going to keep saying ABC, ABC. Always be connecting, always be connecting. And so ethical influence through emotional intelligence. So I want to be clear, emotional intelligence is not manipulation, okay? I do not want you to feel like you're manipulating your team to do whatever it is that you want them to do. It's understanding, it's listening for what people need to feel confident in responding in a way that is truthful, helpful, and supportive. And in response, they feel safe. And so our goal isn't just to get compliance, right? It's not to just get the team in compliance and being on track with your organization. It's really to create alignment, because once you create alignment and synergy, like, you don't have to keep readjusting, right? And so if you do have to adjust, it's usually minor. Okay. And so that's the kind of influence that leaves everyone feeling valued and heard. And so here's how I want you to start practicing this week. I know I gave you a lot of information, a lot of great stuff, but I want you to identify the top 3 emotional leads that influence your team's decisions. I want you to rewrite your change conversations to explore concerns and motivations, not just present solutions. right? So you're going to rewrite your change conversations to explore concerns and motivations. So let's say you have some changes in your organization that you want to make right now. You're going to rewrite those to be able to address. So I gave you a couple of questions at the beginning of this live where you're able to go back and you can go ask those questions. Now, in your next proposal, try acknowledging potential concerns before offering your approach, right? And so you can practice this consistently and you'll notice your conversations kind of shift from convincing to being more of a collaborative effort, right? And if this session actually resonated with you and you're ready to build an emotional intelligence organization into your entire leadership approach, then feel free to come to our info session right after this. You can go to eiready.com/info and you can register. And I will be live there showing you how our framework, our Ready framework, is embedded within organizations to help you create a culture to where you're understanding one another, to where everyone is not running from each other and they're feeling valued and strong. Okay. And if the session, oh, I'm sorry. I got sidetracked because I see my neighbor. I thought they were coming to my door. But that is pretty much it for today. And I want to say thank you so much, right, for being open, right, to leading in a more emotional, intelligent way and for doing the work that creates real connection. I see a lot of leaders that step into this space of being open to becoming a leader and being open to being a manager. And then they get so stuck and locked in their ways that they miss so much opportunity to actually enjoy the role as a manager. Because the role as a manager is to manage, it's not to do the implementation, it's not to do the work, right? It is really to be able to employ others, encourage them, and inspire them to lead. And so remember, influence isn't about saying more. I'm going to say that again. Influence isn't about saying more, it's about understanding more. The more emotionally you are aware, the more effortlessly you can connect and lead. And until next time, continue to lead with vision, influence, heart, and stay emotionally intelligent. Bye for now, and I will see you guys in the info session right after this. And thank you for tuning in. Go ahead and share with other managers who manage people, regardless if they are at, Home Depot or the bank. We have worked with various different organizations in different spaces, right? So car dealerships is actually a good space for us. Hospitals, right? There's a lot of conflict where there are people that are dependent on people to be emotionally strong and to be emotionally intelligent. So until next time, keep being awesome and thank you so much for joining us live. Bye for now.